The morning alarm rang through the space station New Horizon at exactly 8 o'clock. Captain Jake Morrison rolled out of his bunk and put on his blue uniform. He had been living on this station for 3 years now, watching over Earth from high above. The coffee was terrible, but it was the only thing that kept him awake during the long night shifts. Jake walked to the command center and sat down at his desk. The big screen in front of him showed the peaceful blackness of space. Stars twinkled like tiny diamonds against the dark. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe, but then the red lights started flashing. "Captain Morrison, we have a message coming in," said Lieutenant Danny Price. His voice was shaking a little. Danny was young, maybe 22 years old, and he had never seen real trouble before. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. He took a sip of his coffee and made a face. Still terrible. The screen flickered and changed. Now it showed a man in a black uniform with silver buttons. The man had pale skin and strange purple eyes. His hair was white as snow. This was Admiral Kane Vorthak of the Zephyrian Empire, and he was not smiling. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "I am Admiral Vorthak. My fleet is moving toward your solar system. You have caused trouble for the Empire by sending your ships beyond the limits we set for you. This ends." Now Jake felt his stomach drop. The Zephyrians had ruled space for 300 years. Their ships were huge, bigger than cities. Their weapons could destroy planets, and now they were coming to Earth. "You have 24 hours to surrender," Vorthak continued. "Prepare your leaders for transport to our ships. Any resistance will be met with complete destruction. This is your only warning." The screen went black. Jake stared at the empty screen for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and called Earth. "Get me General Marcus Wright," he said. "Tell him we have a big problem." Far away on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, Dr. Lisa Carter was working late in her laboratory. Europa was covered in ice, but under that ice was a secret. The biggest secret humanity had ever kept. Lisa wiped sweat from her face and looked at the massive ship in front of her. It was called the Leviathan, and it was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The ship was 2 miles long and half a mile wide. Its hull was made of metal that seemed to shimmer and change color in the light. "Dr. Carter," called a voice behind her. She turned to see Commander Rick Hayes walking toward her. Rick was a good man, maybe 40 years old, with kind eyes and graying hair. He had been chosen to command the Leviathan because he was smart and brave, but also because he could make hard decisions when needed. "How much longer?" Rick asked. "The main systems are ready," Lisa said. "The quantum drives are online. The weapon systems are charged. We just need to run the final tests." Rick nodded. "We might not have time for tests." Jake Morrison just called from New Horizon. "The Zephyrians are coming." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. For 15 years, she had worked on this project. 15 years of secret research hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The Zephyrians thought humans were stupid and weak. They thought Earth's technology was primitive and worthless. They were wrong. The Leviathan was not just a ship. It was a revolution. Lisa and her team had taken alien technology from crashed ships and mixed it with human creativity. They had built something that had never existed before, something that could change everything. "Phoenix, run system diagnostics," Rick said to the air. A soft female voice answered from speakers hidden in the walls. "All systems operating at full capacity, Commander. The Leviathan is ready for deployment." Phoenix was the ship's artificial intelligence. She was smarter than any computer ever built. She could think and learn and make decisions faster than any human. But she was also loyal to humanity, programmed to protect Earth no matter what. Lisa looked at Rick. "Are you sure about this?" "Once we reveal the Leviathan, there's no going back. The whole galaxy will know what we can do." "The whole galaxy is about to attack us," Rick said. "We don't have a choice." Back on New Horizon, Jake was talking to Earth's leaders on a secure video call. President Helen Baker looked tired and worried. General Wright was angry. Defense Minister Paul Clark was reading reports and shaking his head. "How many ships?" the president asked. 12 capital ships, Jake said. "That's enough firepower to Turn Earth into space dust. The Zephyrians don't play games. When they say surrender or die, they mean it. What about our fleet? General Wright asked. We have 40 ships in the system. Jake almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. Our biggest ship has 30 crew members. Their smallest ship has 3,000. It's not even a fair fight. Then we surrender, said Defense Minister Clark. We have no choice. President Baker was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked directly at the camera. Jake, I need you to send a message to Europa. Tell them it's time. Jake felt confused. Time for what? Project Stormbreaker. Tell Lisa Carter and Rick Hayes that the Leviathan is cleared for launch. Jake had never heard of Project Stormbreaker or the Leviathan, but something in the president's voice told him this was important. Very important. On Europa, alarms were ringing throughout the hidden base. Hundreds of workers ran to their stations. The Leviathan's engines began to hum with power. The ship that had been humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed to. The Galaxy. Rick Hayes stood on the bridge of the Leviathan. The bridge was different from other ships. Instead of buttons and switches, everything was controlled by thought and voice. The walls were made of smart metal that could show any information Rick needed to see. Phoenix, prepare for launch, he said. Launch sequence initiated, Phoenix replied. All crew members report ready. Dr. Carter, are the quantum drives stable? Lisa's voice came through the speakers. Quantum drives are stable and ready. Commander, the Leviathan is yours. The ship began to move. It lifted off from Europa's surface without making a sound. The quantum drives didn't use fire or explosions like normal engines. They bent space itself, allowing the ship to move in ways that seemed impossible. As the Leviathan rose into space, its stealth systems activated. The ship became invisible to all sensors. It could move through space without being detected by any known technology. Admiral Vorthic's fleet was still 12 hours away from Earth. The Admiral sat in his command chair aboard the Dominion's Edge, his flagship. He was confident and relaxed. Humans were weak. This would be easy. He had no idea that death was coming for him. Hidden in the darkness of space, the Leviathan moved toward the edge of the solar system, ready to change the course of galactic history forever. Admiral Kane Vorthok stood at the front of his command bridge, looking out at the stars. The Dominion's Edge was a massive ship, over a mile long and covered in weapons. Its hull was dark gray like storm clouds, and it had ruled space for 200 years. Behind him, 12 more ships flew in perfect formation. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their crews numbered in the thousands. Their weapons could crack moons in half. Admiral, said Commander Zara Thorne, his second in command, we will reach Earth's solar system in 6 hours. The humans have not responded to our surrender demand. Vorthik smiled. His teeth were sharp and white. They will respond when they see our ships. Humans are cowards. They always surrender when they see real power. But Vorthik was wrong. At that very moment, the Leviathan was moving toward them through the darkness of space. The ship's stealth systems made it completely invisible. Not even the best Zephyrian sensors could detect it. Commander Rick Hayes stood on the Leviathan's bridge, watching his crew prepare for battle. The bridge was unlike anything that had ever been built. The walls were alive with flowing lights and displays. The floor was made of smart metal that could show star maps and tactical information. Captain Ben Parker, report to the bridge. Rick said into his communicator. Ben Parker was the Leviathan's tactical officer. He was 35 years old with brown hair and smart eyes. He had studied every battle the Zephyrians had ever fought. He knew their weaknesses. Commander, Ben said as he arrived on the bridge, the Zephyrian fleet is moving in standard attack formation. They're not expecting any resistance. Rick nodded. Phoenix, show me the enemy positions. The ship's AI made the floor glow with light. Suddenly, Rick could see the entire Zephyrian fleet spread out below his feet. The enemy ships looked like toy models, but Rick knew they were real and dangerous. They're beautiful ships, said Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the weapon systems officer. She was a small woman with black hair and fierce eyes. Too bad, we're going to have to destroy them. Amy had designed the Leviathan's weapons. They were not like any weapons that had ever existed. Instead of shooting bullets or energy beams, they could bend space and time itself. They could make enemy ships simply disappear. Phoenix, prepare the quantum disruption array, Rick commanded. QDE charging, Phoenix replied. All weapon systems online and ready. The Leviathan moved closer to the Zephyrian fleet. The enemy ships were still hours away from Earth, but they were close enough now for the Leviathan to strike, back on the Dominion's edge. The Zephyrian sensors suddenly started making noise. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge. Admiral, called Lieutenant Vex Karan from the sensor station. I'm picking up something strange. There's a distortion in space about 50,000 kilometers ahead. Vorthok frowned. What kind of distortion? I don't know, sir. It's like something is there, but our sensors can't see it clearly. At that moment, the Leviathan dropped its stealth field. The massive human ship appeared out of nowhere, right in front of the Zephyrian fleet. It was huge, bigger than any ship the Zephyrians had ever seen. Its hull was silver and blue, and it gleamed like a jewel in the starlight. Impossible, whispered Commander Thorne. How did they build something so large? Vorthok stared at the human ship. His confidence was starting to crack. All ships, battle stations. Prepare to engage the enemy. But before the Zephyrians could react, the Leviathan sent a message. Rick Hayes' face appeared on every screen in the enemy fleet. Admiral Vorthok, Rick said calmly, you have entered human space without permission. You have 10 minutes to turn your ships around and leave. This is your only warning. Vorthok laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. 1 ship against 13? You humans are braver than I thought, but also more foolish. You have 9 minutes. And 30 seconds, Rick replied. Then the screen went black. On the Leviathan's bridge, the crew was ready for battle. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Mitchell was in charge of the ship's fighters, but these were not normal fighters. They were robot ships controlled by artificial intelligence. Sir, Steve said to Rick, the drone squadrons are ready to launch. We have 500 units prepared for combat. Rick nodded. Launch when ready. The Leviathan's launch bays opened. Instead of human pilots and small ships, swarms of robot fighters poured out into space. They moved like a school of fish, flowing and turning together. Each one was smart enough to think for itself, but they all worked together as one unit. Admiral Vorthok watched the human drones on his screens. They were small, maybe the size of a car, but they moved in ways that seemed impossible. They could turn and twist without slowing down. They could fly in patterns that hurt to look at. Launch our fighters, Vorthok commanded. Show these humans what real pilots can do. The Zephyrian ships opened their launch bays. Hundreds of fighter craft emerged, each one flown by a trained pilot. These pilots had years of experience. They had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy, but they had never fought anything like the human drones. The two forces met in the empty space between the fleets. The Zephyrian pilots expected a normal dogfight. They expected to use their skill and experience to defeat the human machines. Instead, the human drones did something impossible. They seemed to phase through the Zephyrian weapons fire. Laser beams and plasma bolts passed right through them without causing any damage. What's happening? Vorthok demanded. Why aren't our weapons working? Commander Thorne checked her instruments. Sir, the human fighters are using some kind of phase technology. They're shifting between dimensions to avoid our fire. While the Zephyrian pilots tried to understand what was happening, the human drones struck back. Their weapons were small but incredibly precise. Each shot hit exactly where it was supposed to. Within minutes, half the Zephyrian fighters were destroyed. The other half tried to run back to their ships, but the human drones were faster. They moved like living things, flowing around the fleeing fighters and destroying them one by one. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Zephyrian fighter force was gone. Not a single human drone had been lost. Admiral Vorthok stared at his tactical display in shock. His fighters were gone. His pilots were dead. And the human ship hadn't even used its main weapons yet. Sir, said Lieutenant Karan, his voice shaking, the human ship is powering up something big? I'm reading energy levels I've never seen before. On the Leviathan's bridge, Dr. Rodriguez was preparing the main weapon. QD is fully charged. She reported, ready to fire on your command. Rick looked at the Zephyrian fleet on his display. These ships had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. They had destroyed entire worlds and enslaved billions of people. But now they were just targets. Fire, Rick said quietly. The quantum disruption array activated. It didn't fire a beam or a missile. Instead, it reached out with invisible hands and grabbed space itself. Then it twisted. The first Zephyrian ship, a heavy cruiser called the Iron Fist, simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next moment it was gone. Not destroyed, not blown up, just erased from existence. The second ship lasted a few seconds longer. Its hull began to twist and bend like rubber. Then it too disappeared, scattered across dimensions that had no names. Pull back, Vorthek screamed. All ships retreat immediately, but it was too late. The Leviathan's weapons struck again and again. Each time, another Zephyrian ship was removed from reality. The crews didn't even have time to scream. In less than 5 minutes, 11 of the 13 Zephyrian ships were gone. Only the Dominion's Edge and one escort ship remained. Vorthek looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with fear in their eyes. The greatest fleet in the galaxy had been destroyed by a single human ship. Send a message to the Empire, he said quietly. Tell them we have found something we cannot fight. The battle was over. The Zephyrian Empire had learned that humans were no longer the weak race they had once been. Earth had a secret that could change everything, and this was just the beginning. The message from Admiral Vorthak reached the capital world of Zephyros Prime in just 3 hours. The planet was beautiful, with golden cities and floating towers that touched the clouds. For 300 years, it had been the center of the greatest empire in the galaxy. Emperor Darius Krell sat on his crystal throne in the center of the Imperial Palace. He was old, maybe 500 years by human standards, but his purple eyes were still sharp and intelligent. He had ruled the empire for over a century, and he had never lost a battle. Your Majesty, said General Rex Vulcan, the Empire's military commander, we have received Admiral Vorthak's report. The humans have destroyed most of the Third Fleet. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the walls of the throne room showed images from across the galaxy. Thousands of worlds paid tribute to the Empire. Billions of people bowed to his rule. Show me the battle records, Krell said finally, the air in front of the throne filled with light. Suddenly, the Emperor could see everything that had happened near Earth. He watched the human ship appear from nowhere. He watched the Zephyrian fighters die without fighting back. He watched his great warships disappear one by one. This is impossible, whispered Admiral Nix Vander, the Emperor's naval advisor. No ship can destroy a battle fleet so easily. But the Emperor was thinking. He had lived for centuries. He had seen many impossible things become possible. What do we know about this human ship? General Vulcan pulled up more information. It's called the Leviathan. It's bigger than our largest dreadnought. Our scientists say its weapons work by changing the laws of physics. How many ships like this do the humans have? We don't know, Your Majesty. This is the first time we've seen anything like it. The Emperor stood up from his throne. Then we must assume they have more. Send orders to every fleet in the Empire. I want 200 ships gathered at the Nexus Station. We will crush these humans before they can threaten us further. But the Emperor was making a mistake. He thought this was just about one ship. He didn't understand that the humans had changed everything about warfare. Back on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was still on the space station New Horizon. He was watching the news reports from around the world. Every television channel was showing the same thing, the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet. This is incredible, said news reporter Carol White from New York. For the first time in human history, we have defeated an alien invasion. The mysterious ship that saved us has been identified as the EDF Leviathan, but the government won't say where it came from. Jake smiled. He knew where it came from. And he knew there was more coming. His phone rang. It was General Wright calling from Earth. "Jake," the general said, "I need you to come down to the surface. There's something you need to see." 2 hours later, Jake was standing in a secret underground base in Colorado. The base was huge, carved out of solid rock deep under the mountains. Hundreds of people were working at computer stations and control panels. "Welcome to Project Stormbreaker," said General Wright. "This is where we've been preparing for this day for the last 15 years. Jake looked around in amazement. "How did you keep this secret?" "Very carefully," said a woman's voice behind him. Jake turned to see Captain LaVaud Davis, a woman about his age with short blonde hair and confident eyes. "I'm the project coordinator. We've been building a fleet." She led Jake to a viewing window. Below them was a massive underground hangar. Inside the hangar were ships, dozens of them. They were smaller than the Leviathan, but they all had the same sleek design and glowing hulls. "These are Titan-class destroyers," Lavra explained. "Each one has the same technology as the Leviathan, just scaled down. We've been building them in secret bases all over the solar system." Jake couldn't believe what he was seeing. "How many do we have?" 57 combat ships," said General Wright. "Plus the second supercarrier?" "Second supercarrier?" Lavar smiled. "The Titan, it's even bigger than the Leviathan. Captain Julie Foster is commanding it. She's currently hiding behind Jupiter's moon, Ganymede." Jake realized that humanity had been preparing for this war for much longer than anyone knew. While the Zephyrians thought Earth was weak and helpless, humans had been building the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. "But why keep it secret?" Jake asked. "Because we needed the element of surprise," General Wright said. "The Empire has ruled the galaxy for centuries. They have millions of ships and billions of soldiers. Our only advantage was that they didn't know what we could do." On the other side of the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire was gathering its forces. At Nexus Station, a massive space dock near the center of Imperial territory, ships were arriving from every corner of the Empire. Commander Zara Thorne, who had escaped from the battle near Earth, stood on the dock watching the fleet assemble. She had been promoted to admiral after Vorthic's death, and now she was helping to plan the Empire's revenge. "How many ships do we have?" asked Fleet Admiral Kex Draken, the Empire's highest-ranking military officer. 215 capital ships, Zara replied, plus over 3,000 smaller vessels. "This is the largest fleet the Empire has ever assembled." Draken nodded with satisfaction. "The humans got lucky once. They caught us by surprise. But this time, we'll be ready for their tricks." But as the Imperial fleet prepared to leave for Earth, something was happening in the outer regions of the Empire. Human ships were appearing near Imperial colonies. Small groups of the new Earth destroyers were attacking supply lines and communication stations. On the planet Korath, a major Imperial supply world, Governor Tim Nexus was reading reports with growing alarm. 3 of his supply convoys had been attacked in the last week. The attackers were human ships, but they moved and fought like nothing in the Imperial databases. "Sir," said his aide, "we have another attack. The convoy from Zarian has been destroyed." "Send a patrol to investigate," Nexus ordered, but when the patrol arrived, they found something terrifying. The Imperial ships hadn't been blown up or shot down. They had simply been removed from existence. Just like the ships near Earth. Similar attacks were happening all over the Empire. Human ships would appear from nowhere, destroy their targets, and vanish again. The Empire's response was always the same: send more ships. But the human ships were faster and smarter than anything the Empire had. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was on the bridge of the Leviathan, coordinating these attacks. The ship was now hidden in an asteroid belt near the edge of the solar system, but its advanced communication systems could reach human ships anywhere in the galaxy. "Strike Team 7, report," she said into her communicator. "Target destroyed," came the reply from Captain Tony Blake, commanding a group of destroyers near the Imperial world of Vaxon. No casualties on our side, Amy smiled. The human ships were using hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and disappearing before the Empire could respond. Each attack was carefully planned to cause maximum damage with minimal risk. Phoenix, Amy said to the ship's AI. How many Imperial ships have we destroyed in the last week? Approximately 400 vessels, Phoenix replied. The Empire's supply lines are beginning to collapse. On Zephyros Prime, Emperor Krell was getting angrier by the day. Reports of human attacks were coming in from all over the Empire. His generals were demanding more ships to protect the colonies, but he needed those ships for the attack on Earth. Your Majesty, said General Vulcan, perhaps we should delay the attack on Earth. The humans are hitting us everywhere at once. No, Krell said firmly. Earth is the source of this threat. If we destroy their homeworld, the attacks will stop. But the Emperor was wrong again. The humans weren't just defending Earth anymore. They were taking the fight to the Empire. And they were winning. The Leviathan began moving toward the center of the galaxy where the Imperial fleet was gathering. It was time for the second battle, and this time the humans would not be fighting alone. War was coming to the Empire, and it would be like nothing they had ever seen before. The Grand Imperial Fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 200 massive warships filled the space around Nexus Station, their hulls gleaming in the light of the nearby star. Each ship was a masterpiece of Imperial engineering, built to last for centuries and equipped with weapons that could shatter worlds. Emperor Darius Krell stood on the bridge of his personal flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 3 times larger than Admiral Vorthak's destroyed vessel, covered in armor that could withstand the explosion of a small star. The Emperor had not personally commanded a fleet in over 50 years, but the human threat was too important to leave to others. Admiral Draken, the Emperor said to his fleet commander, report on our forces. Fleet Admiral Kex Draken was a tall, thin man with scars across his face from decades of battles. He had never lost a fight, and he planned to keep it that way. Your Majesty, we have 215 capital ships, including 12 super dreadnoughts. Our total crew numbers over 3 million beings. This fleet could destroy 100 worlds. The Emperor nodded with satisfaction. And what do we know about the human forces? Intelligence suggests they have perhaps 50 ships total, Draken replied. They may be advanced, but they are vastly outnumbered. As the Imperial fleet prepared to leave for Earth, they had no idea that human ships were already watching them. Hidden in the asteroid fields around Nexus Station, 3 human destroyers were recording everything they saw. Captain Tony Blake commanded one of these spy ships. His destroyer, the Falcon, was completely invisible to Imperial sensors. He watched the massive enemy fleet through his advanced instruments and shook his head. They really think numbers matter, he said to his crew. Phoenix, transmit our findings. To the Leviathan. Transmission sent, replied the ship's AI. Commander Hayes will receive our report in 30 minutes. Far away, near the edge of the solar system, the Leviathan was waiting. But it wasn't alone anymore. The human fleet had grown significantly since the first battle. 57 destroyers hung in space around the 2 supercarriers, their hulls gleaming with the same advanced technology. Commander Rick Hayes stood on the Leviathan's bridge, reading the intelligence reports. The Imperial fleet was massive, but Rick wasn't worried. Numbers meant nothing when you could change the rules of physics. Dr. Rodriguez, he said to his weapons officer, are the new systems ready? Amy Rodriguez looked up from her control panel. The quantum disruption array has been upgraded. We can now create cascade effects that will spread from ship to ship. One shot could destroy an entire formation. And the Titan? Captain Foster reports all systems green. Her ship is ready for battle. The Titan was humanity's second supercarrier, and it was even more advanced than the Leviathan. Captain Julie. Foster was a brilliant tactician who had helped design the ship's weapon systems. She was also completely ruthless when it came to protecting Earth. Sir, said Lieutenant Colonel Steve Mitchell, the drone commander, we have a new problem. The Empire has started using our own tactics against us. Rick frowned. What do you Mean? They're attacking our colonies with hit-and-run tactics? Small groups of Imperial ships are hitting our outer settlements and then running away before we can respond. This was true. The Empire had learned from the human attacks and was now using similar strategies, but they were making a mistake. They thought they were fighting a normal war against a normal enemy. On the Imperial colony world of Vaxen, Governor Lisa Kern was celebrating. Her forces had just destroyed a human settlement on the edge of the system. 3 Imperial cruisers had attacked the colony and wiped out all the defenders. "Send a message to the Emperor," she told her aide. "Tell him we have struck back at the humans." But as the Imperial ships prepared to leave the system, something happened. The space around them began to shimmer and twist. Suddenly, 5 human destroyers appeared from nowhere, surrounding the Imperial ships. "This is Captain Sarah Bell of the Earth Defense Force," came a voice over the radio. "You have attacked human civilians. Surrender now or be destroyed." The Imperial ships opened fire immediately. Their weapons were powerful, designed to punch through the strongest armor. But the human ships simply weren't there anymore. They had shifted into another dimension, letting the Imperial fire pass through empty space. Then the human ships fired back. Their weapons didn't just destroy the Imperial ships, they erased them from existence. The 3 cruisers vanished without a trace, as if they had never existed at all. News of the defeat spread quickly through the Empire. The humans weren't just defending themselves anymore. They were hunting Imperial ships throughout the galaxy, and they were winning every battle. Emperor Krell received the reports on his flagship as the Grand Fleet traveled toward Earth. Each message was worse than the last. Human ships were appearing everywhere, destroying Imperial forces and then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. "Your Majesty," said General Vulcan, "we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. Maybe we should reconsider this attack." But the Emperor was determined. "No, we will destroy Earth and end this threat once and for all. Order the fleet to maximum speed." The Grand Fleet jumped into hyperspace, racing toward Earth at faster-than-light speed. But they were flying into a trap. The humans had been preparing for this moment for months. Captain Lavra Davis stood in the command center of the hidden base in Colorado. Around her, hundreds of technicians were monitoring the approach of the Imperial fleet. Every human ship in the galaxy was now moving toward Earth for the final battle. "General Wright," she said to the military commander, "the Imperial fleet will arrive in 6 hours. Are we ready?" "As ready as we can be," Wright replied. 57 destroyers, 2 supercarriers, and every defense platform in the solar system. Plus a few surprises the Empire won't expect. The surprises were hidden throughout the solar system. Automated weapon platforms disguised as asteroids. Stealth mines that could phase between dimensions. And something special that Dr. Carter had been working on, a weapon that could destroy an entire fleet with a single shot dot as the Imperial fleet approached Earth. Admiral Draken was confident. His sensors showed only the human supercarriers and a few smaller ships. The humans seemed to be putting up a desperate last stand. "All ships, prepare for battle," Draken commanded. "We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the Empire." But as the Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, they found something unexpected. The human ships were waiting for them in perfect formation. And there were more of them than intelligence had suggested. "Sir," said Commander Vex Kohler, Draken's tactical officer, "I'm reading 60 human ships, and they're not running away." Draken smiled. 60 ships against 200. "They're brave, but they're also fools. All ships, attack formation. Prepare to destroy the human fleet." The Imperial ships began to move forward, their weapons powering up. But as they advanced, strange things started happening. Some of the asteroids in the area began to glow with an inner light. The space around the human ships started to shimmer and twist. "Sir," Kohler said, his voice worried, "I'm picking up massive energy readings. The humans are powering up something big." On the bridge of the Leviathan, Rick Hayes was watching the Imperial fleet approach. The enemy ships were beautiful in their own way, but they represented centuries of oppression and conquest. Today, that would end, Dr. Rodriguez, he said calmly. Fire when ready, Amy Rodriguez smiled as she activated the new weapon system, firing quantum cascade array. The space around the Imperial fleet suddenly exploded with light. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as the human weapon reached out across the void. The first row of Imperial ships simply vanished, erased from existence by forces they couldn't understand, but this time the effect didn't stop there. The quantum cascade spread from ship to ship, tearing holes in space-time itself. Dozens of Imperial vessels were caught in the expanding field of destruction. Impossible! Admiral Draken shouted. How can they destroy so many ships at once? But the humans weren't finished. The Titan's weapons joined the attack, and the automated defense platforms throughout the solar system came online. The Imperial fleet found itself under attack from every direction by weapons that defied every law of physics they knew. Emperor Krell watched his fleet being destroyed around him. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were being erased. Like drawings on a blackboard, his great armada was falling apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Your Majesty, said Admiral Draken, his voice desperate. We must retreat. We cannot fight this, but it was too late. The human ships were moving now, flowing through space like living things. They struck with perfect precision, destroying Imperial. Ships faster than the eye could follow Dot in less than an hour. The greatest fleet in galactic history was gone. Only a few dozen ships remained, fleeing toward the edge of the system. The silence after the battle was deafening. Where moments before there had been the greatest fleet in galactic history, now there was only empty space and floating debris. The few surviving Imperial ships fled toward the edge of the solar system. Their crews too shocked to even send distress signals, Emperor. Darius Krell sat in his command chair aboard the Eternal Dominion, one of only 12 ships that had escaped the destruction. His hands were shaking as he stared at the tactical display. 200 ships had been reduced to 12 in less than an hour. Your Majesty, said Admiral Draken, his voice barely a whisper. What are your orders? Krell closed his eyes. For the first time in centuries, he felt truly afraid. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had made it look easy. Every ship destroyed, every life lost, all of it had been for nothing. Send a message to all remaining Imperial forces. He said slowly, tell them to stop fighting. Tell them the war is over. Back on Earth, the news of victory spread across the planet in minutes. In every city, people poured into the streets to celebrate. For the first time in human history, they had defeated an alien invasion. More than that, they had proven that humanity was now the strongest force in the galaxy. President Helen Baker stood in the White House, watching the celebrations on television. General Wright was beside her, along with other military leaders. They all looked amazed by what had just happened. How many ships did we lose? The president asked. None, said General Wright. Not a single human ship was destroyed. We didn't even take any damage. It was almost impossible to believe. The greatest military force in the galaxy had been completely defeated without causing any harm to the human fleet. It was a victory beyond anyone's wildest dreams. On the Leviathan, Commander Rick Hayes was receiving reports from across the galaxy. The destruction of the Grand Fleet had been broadcast on every communication channel. Within hours, every world in the Empire knew what had happened. Sir, said Captain Ben Parker, we're getting surrender requests from Imperial forces everywhere. They're laying down their weapons and asking for terms. Rick nodded. The Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. Without their fleet, the Zephyrians had no way to hold their territory together. Rebellions were starting on dozens of worlds. Phoenix, Rick said to the ship's AI, open a channel to all Imperial forces. Channel open, Phoenix replied. Rick's image appeared on screens throughout the galaxy. Imperial commanders, planetary governors, and military leaders all watched as the human who had destroyed their empire began to speak. I am Commander Rick Hayes of the Earth Defense Force, he said calmly. The Zephyrian Empire's military forces have been defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your emperor has fled. On worlds throughout the galaxy, people watched in amazement. The humans who had been considered primitive and weak were now dictating terms to the empire that had ruled space for centuries. But we are not conquerors, Rick continued. We do not seek to replace the empire with our own rule. We offer a different path, a path of cooperation and peace. This was the moment that changed everything. Instead of taking over the empire's territory, humanity offered something completely new, an alliance of equals. Worlds that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly free to choose their own destiny. Dr. Lisa Carter was back on Europa, working on new ship designs. The war was over, but she knew that peace would require constant vigilance. The Leviathan had proven that human technology was superior to anything else in the galaxy, but they needed to stay ahead of any potential threats, Dr. Carter called. Captain Julie Foster, commander of the Titan, we just received a message from the Centauri colonies. They want to join the new alliance, Lisa smiled. The Centauri system had been one of the Empire's most important territories. If they were joining the human alliance, it meant the old order was truly dead. How many worlds have joined so far? Lisa asked. Over 300, Julie replied. And more are asking to join every day. The new alliance was called the Galactic Cooperation Council. Instead of one empire ruling over everyone else, it was a group of equals working together. Each world kept its own government and culture, but they all agreed to help defend each other. Emperor Krell's ship finally reached the imperial capital of Zephyros. Prime, the planet that had once been the center of galactic power, was now in chaos. Ships were fleeing the system, taking refugees and treasure to safer locations. Your Majesty, said his aide as they landed at the imperial palace, the Council of Nobles is waiting for you. But when Krell entered the throne room, he found it almost empty. Only a few old nobles remained, and they all looked frightened and angry. You have destroyed us, said Lord Vextakur, the oldest of the nobles. 300 years of imperial rule ended by your foolish attack on Earth. Krell wanted to defend himself, but he knew it was true. His decision to attack Earth had led to the Empire's complete destruction. He had underestimated the humans, and now his entire civilization was paying the price. What do you want me to do? He asked. Surrender? Said Lady Nix Vander. Send a message to the humans. Tell them we accept their terms. 2 weeks later, the formal surrender ceremony took place on Earth. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in New York City to witness the end of the Zephyrian Empire and the beginning of a new age. Emperor Krell stood on a platform in front of the United Nations building. He looked old and tired, nothing like the powerful ruler who had once commanded the galaxy. Beside him stood Commander Rick Hayes, Admiral Julie Foster, and other human leaders. I, Darius Krell, last Emperor of the Zephyrian Empire, do hereby surrender all Imperial forces to the Earth Defense Force, he said in a voice that carried across the world. The Empire is ended. Long live the Galactic Cooperation Council. As the ceremony ended, Rick Hayes looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the Leviathan was patrolling the galaxy, keeping the peace. Other human ships were helping former Imperial worlds rebuild their governments and economies. What happens now? Asked President Baker. Now we build something better, Rick replied. Something that has never existed before in the galaxy. A civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his own ship, the Defender. It was one of the new patrol vessels that kept order in the galaxy. The ship was smaller than the Leviathan, but it had the same advanced technology. Sir, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Price, we're getting a distress call. From the Vega system, pirates are attacking a cargo convoy. Jake smiled. Pirates had become a problem since the Empire's collapse, but they were no match for human technology. Set course for Vega, maximum speed. The Defender jumped into hyperspace, racing to help the convoy. This was the new reality. Instead of one empire ruling through fear, humans were keeping the peace through superior technology and quick response. As the ship traveled through hyperspace, Jake thought about how much had changed. A year ago, humanity had been trapped in its own solar system, considered weak and primitive by the rest of the galaxy. Now they were the guardians of galactic peace, protecting thousands of worlds with their advanced fleet. The Leviathan had been humanity's secret weapon, but it had become something more. It was a symbol of what humans could achieve when they put their minds to it. Earth had been underestimated, but they had proven that innovation and determination could overcome any obstacle. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral, stood in the command center of the new Earth Defense Force headquarters. On the walls around her, screens showed the status of human ships throughout the galaxy. The fleet had grown to over 200 vessels, all equipped with the same reality-bending technology that had destroyed the Empire. "Admiral," said her aide, "we have a request from the Andromeda expedition. They want to extend their mission another 6 months." Amy nodded. Humanity was no longer content to stay in one galaxy. They were exploring new regions of space, making contact with civilizations that had never heard of the Zephyrian Empire. "Approved," she said, "but tell them to be careful. We don't know what's out there." As the sun set over Earth, the Leviathan hung in orbit, its hull gleaming in the dying light. The ship that had shattered an empire was now the protector of a new galactic order. It was a symbol of humanity's rise from a primitive species to the guardians of the galaxy. Commander Rick Hayes, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of his ship, looking down at the blue and green world below. Earth had given birth to something remarkable, a civilization that chose to protect rather than conquer, to build rather than destroy. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in centuries, and it would remain at peace as long as human ships patrolled the stars, ready to defend the innocent and protect the weak. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun.